Yo, what is up world, Money Beeps here. Welcome back to the YouTube channel. It is really good to see you guys. This week's vlog, we're going to be talking about why cameras like the Sony FX3 should be used way more often in big Hollywood budget films. But before we get into it, roll the intro, and I'll see you soon. $3,898 is the price of the Sony FX3, and this camera is incredibly well priced relative to all the other cinema cameras that you see. So you're probably wondering why I'm even making this video. If you haven't seen the film The Creator, then you're probably not sure which camera they used.
What do you want, sweetie?
For robots to be free.
Oh, we don't have that in the fridge. How about ice cream?
But if you don't have that kind of money to buy the camera, you can get it way cheaper if you rent out this camera. Now, here are some prices just from ShareGrid in the Los Angeles area, just so you can see how cheap you can use this camera on a daily basis. And like you just saw, the Sony FX3 is significantly cheaper, and in the film The Creator they used this exact camera, which the film The Creator had a budget of about $80 million, which is a lot cheaper than the typical huge blockbuster films. So if you don't know already, some of the key features of the Sony FX3 is that it's got a 12.1 megapixel sensor, and it's also a full frame camera. It shoots 4K footage up to 120 frames, which really just means slow motion. Now this Sony FX3 is much more compact than the other huge giant cinema cameras, which really just means you can use this camera in so many small places, as well as really big places with much smaller rigging, which means you can just move the camera a lot easier and much more efficient than you would a huge giant camera. Now for those of you that do care about the footage that the camera records in, the Sony FX3 does shoot in 10-bit 422 color space, which really just means there are a lot of colors that the camera can see, which in post you can change and you can alter. Now, if you're recording externally with this camera, you can get up to 16-bit raw footage, which is really robust, and most of the big giant cameras that are super expensive on these huge Hollywood budget films can do that internally. So when we look at the specs, you're really not missing much from those other cameras that cost $80,000 and more. So you might be wondering if I have even used this camera, and the answer is yes. I've used it several times. And each time I've used it, it's been great, so easy to work with. The menu systems are actually easy to go through, which Sony cameras were historically terrible, and they've made the footage a lot more robust. There was once upon a time where Sony cameras didn't really have the best skin tones. Now they do. They have incredible skin tones, which is one of the reasons why I really enjoy using that camera in particular. Now, there were two projects that I've used this camera on. One of them was for my senior thesis at USC about a year ago or so. We used this camera for certain scenes where we needed the camera to move. It was very simple to set up the camera on a gimbal. When you have a camera that's small and easy to move and easy to maneuver, you can put creativity at the forefront of the film, which is probably why it was even used in The Creator in the first place. And I also got a chance to use the Sony FX3 most recently on a small commercial shoot that was really low budget.
You ready?
Yeah, but I didn't bring any.
And this camera was perfect. Again, it's all about the ergonomics of this camera. It's super small, very easy to move on a gimbal, handheld, easy rig, however you want to use it. And like I said, the color science is amazing. If you look at the skin tones, specifically in the darker skin tones, this camera really shines.
What you doing?
I'm working out
Is that a sandwich in your hand?
on my lunch break
Then why are you hitting a tree?
because I don't have time to do both.
Now, using the Sony FX3 on a smaller commercial versus a really big budget like my senior thesis film, there was virtually no difference. It felt the same, and it allowed me to be creative as a cinematographer as fast as I needed to be. And again, because this camera has wonderful color science and it records 422 10-bit internally, the footage just looks amazing. And it's something that holds up on a small phone and also on a huge giant screen. If you've seen The Creator, you understand what I'm talking about. And also in my own film, Go Danny Go, on the big screen, it just looked amazing. So it has me wondering, do we really need to use big giant cameras for Hollywood blockbuster films? I don't think so. I think we're at a point in time where we can use much smaller, much more ergonomic, and much cheaper alternatives like the Sony FX3 to film movies at any budget. I used to think early in my filmmaking career that using the Arri Alexa was like a badge of honor. It was almost like a rite of passage. But now I really don't think that, because cameras like the Sony FX3 are making their way into the huge blockbuster Hollywood world. But then again, who am I to say? Maybe you have seen the creator and you didn't like the visuals, or you didn't even like the story, which, to be transparent, I didn't really like the story that much either. But the overall experience, again, was really awesome, and I think using the Sony FX3 for a huge budget film like the creator should be done way more often, just because it's cheaper, and it allows you and me, people who are striving to become filmmakers, much less intimidated to step into that world. So again, the Sony FX3 has a wonderful price point, which you can rent or you can buy at a much cheaper price than the much more expensive $80,000 to $100,000 to even more expensive cameras, and still get a wonderful looking image. As a reminder, it's not all about the imagery. The story should be most important. You don't want to go out and get all of the equipment that you think is needed, like huge cameras, lights, etc. Kind of like that one movie, The Room.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Oh, hey, Johnny, what's up?
I have a problem with Lisa. She said that I hit her.
What? Well, did you?
No, it's not true. Don't even ask. What's new with you?
If you remember that film, it's like a cult classic. But they had all the wonderful tools that they needed to tell a story, but the story that it told is a story that we all kind of laugh at. And again, it's a cult classic, I understand that, but just goes to say, it's not all about the gear. It should be all about the story. Let that drive the creativity, and if you have to sacrifice anywhere in terms of budget, maybe you too should think about using a camera like the Sony FX3. It's much cheaper, you still get a wonderful image, and again, the focus is where it should be, on the story. So if you enjoyed this week's vlog, you know what to do. Go and do a super jump on that like button down below, and also get subscribed to the YouTube channel, because yes, every single Wednesday is a brand new vlog. I'm Matty Beaves, cinematographer / student, and I will see you all in 7 days. Right on.